You're listening to the Voices of Recovery podcast. This is a special episode featuring a recovering addict. Hi, my name is Sophie Axe. I'm the host and producer of the Voices of Recovery podcast. I'm joined here today by Roy. Hi, Roy.
Hi.
What's up, my friend? Thank you so much for doing the readings for the Just for Today and for the SPAD. We appreciate you being on the show.
Honored to do it.
You're also being featured on our special October series of ShowBiz in Recovery. I met Roy at an open mic event for our local Nassau area where Roy played an amazing set of rockabilly songs back to back. And Roy is a professional musician. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Roy, and talk a little bit about your active addiction and basically how you had to give up music, like literally give up your guitar for your addiction, and how recovery brought that back into your life. You've been in recovery for a very long time.
I have. It seems long and short because I can remember every detail of it. And when I first came around, I didn't get it right away. And when I didn't get it, this is how long ago it was. I didn't know if you relapsed, I didn't know you could try again. I thought it just meant it didn't work for me and I'd have to find some other way. I just did not understand. And when I found out it was as simple as making a phone call and getting some help, I was, at that point, I was ready. So since then, recovery, there have been difficult times, but the actual not using part has not been. I know that's not everybody's experience, and I don't want to downplay anyone else's struggle, but for me personally, the staying clean part has not been super difficult.
So you've been clean 38 years. What does that look like as a professional musician? Because you're constantly touring. You're in Las Vegas one week, in Pennsylvania the next, performing in Manhattan, and then a few days later you're somewhere else. What does that look like being in recovery and being a musician that's constantly on tour?
It's a great question. I'm not sure. Most people that in my life, besides from in recovery, don't ask me the details about it. They just know that I don't want to drink. You want to drink? No, I don't want one. So it's not something I get asked all the time. First of all, I wouldn't be able to do it if I wasn't clean. I often think about that when I have a very late night and I'm driving home and I'm getting home and it's light out. I said, how could I have done this when I was high on drugs? And as we're sitting here, you look to your right, that electric guitar, that Fender Strat, first guitar I ever bought when I was 13. When I got clean, that guitar, so clearly my first guitar, one of my prized possessions, that guitar was in a pawn shop. That's where my addiction took me. And when I got clean, I had some people that I owed some money to that had to get paid or there might be trouble. So my first couple of paychecks, I couldn't get my guitar out yet. I had to wait. And when I finally went to that pawn shop, the poor guy who owned the pawn shop, he didn't do anything wrong. But I went in there like he was the villain. I'm like, give me my guitars. It's fascinating because what does our step work teach you? What do the spiritual principles teach you? We practice these principles in all our affairs. That does not mean only in meetings. It's easy to practice it in meetings. Walk out the door and it's not as easy. What a gift I've been given to be able to do this and to spread my music, but also love, positivity, to spread that wherever I go. And it's not a conscious thing. I'm not trying to. The conscious part may be putting on a happy face when I may not be feeling great, or having a responsibility to an audience, to a club owner, to be a positive experience for the people when I might not be feeling it. But as far as the message, I feel that, what do we always say? In order to keep what you have to give it away. The unspoken part of that is, in order to give it away, you have to have it first.
Mm-hmm.
So once I have this, it now becomes my responsibility. And with recovery and step work, I'm not trying to do it. It's part of who I am now. It's coming to see my band play music is a positive experience. It's inclusive. That's one of the things. That's why my live stream is successful, because I'm looking at the screen and I'm trying to respond to all of the comments. During the pandemic, a 3 hour live stream may have had over 2,000 comments. That was a little hard to keep up with everyone. But now that it's slowed down, it's still a good 500-600 comments every week. And I try to include people, and it's fun. Another thing that's different, being clean and in recovery, I'm better at every single thing to do with being a musician. Literally every single thing. I'm a better guitar player, a better singer. My eyes are wide open. I can see what's going on. I can sense what's going on with the crowd. I can sense it's a journey. I think that would be the best way to describe it. It's a journey that works both ways. I may have an idea in my mind of what the night's going to play out, how the night's going to play out, and immediately realize it's not that kind of night. I was wrong. So what do? Do I just stubbornly plod ahead? I'm doing these songs and nothing else matters? Or do I say, okay, I'm going to do a little change here, mix this up. If the crowd is subdued, I have a choice. Play subdued music for that crowd, or slowly turn that around and take them with me, while also being open to allow them to take me somewhere. How can you do that if you're high on drugs?
Yeah.
You have no perception of that. You have to be able to feel that. And that's why I like shows where the audience is close to me. If they're further away, it's a different kind of show. I try to go to meetings wherever I go. That's another positive thing. I get to travel, like you mentioned Las Vegas. I've been going to play a rockabilly festival called Viva Las Vegas for 25 years in a row. I could be standing with people who have known me for 20 years through music, and it's Las Vegas. It's already chaotic, but the festival is chaotic. People, a lot of drugs, mostly drinking, but drugs everywhere, of course. And I could leave there, go to a meeting, and in 5 minutes, the strangers know me better than the music people who've known me for decades. It's a beautiful thing that we're involved in. There would be nothing, literally nothing, without being clean. Literally, because I'm saying literally because my guitars, I wouldn't even have my guitars. But who would book a drug addict? Who would be in a band with a drug addict? Who would be in a relationship with a drug addict? If you're an up and coming musician now, when you listen to some of these people now and they're singing about drinking songs and stuff like that, I always laugh to myself, because I think that artist is probably literally not allowed to drink per his contract, and he's singing a drinking song. It's not like the old days. And I can do those songs and have no problem doing it. I've stayed away from some music, but I can revisit it. I used to really love Lou Reed, and I still do love him. But, you know, I those songs were my anthem when I first came around. I mean, when I was using. I would live those songs and celebrate the drug lifestyle. The Rolling Stones, Lou Reed, stuff like that. And now I can just appreciate the music. I used for 14 years, started when I was 12. It was fun, but it wasn't fun for my family. But my family wasn't as important to me as my friends. And I didn't think I was hurting anybody. I didn't think I was. I think if it had been pointed out to me back then, I just think I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed the pain that I was causing them. We thought we were going to conquer the world and we were going to have money, drugs, women, Madison Square Garden, and that was going to be we were destined to do that. Forgetting to learn how to play our instruments first. I see a lot of the kind of music I play. There's a lot of posers. There's a lot of people who have the right guitar and they have the right clothes and they stand the right way and they play the right songs, but they forgot to learn how to play first. So learning how to play was very, very important coming along. But as I got deeper into it, drugs are a selfish lover.
They never love you back. They never love you
Nope, and
back.
it wants anything that this relationship, you're in a relationship. No, no, you're not anymore.
Hmm.
And think of that as in terms of all relationships. You're in a band. I
Not
look,
anymore.
I listened to some recordings that I've done, and I can remember, actually going into the bathroom like, in between cuts, and just that's disrespectful to what the music has given me. It's very disrespectful. I have a song, one of my most requested rockabilly music, "Save My Soul." And the first line says, "Back in 1983, what a tortured time for me. I was lost. I paid the cost with my heart. As I cried there in my pain, my tears fell like rain, till I just broke down and fell apart." So music saved me, and I don't forget that. In the same way that NA has, that recovery has, music has saved me. And in times, hard times, I could always turn to the music to save me. Maybe it's being sad and listening to a sad song that I need to purge it from me. But drugs took over to the point where I couldn't have a band. I couldn't have a romantic relationship. I couldn't have a band because I would borrow money from you rather than record. I couldn't have gigs because I might not show up. And it's nothing against the club owner, nothing at all. It's drug addicts, although they're skewed, their priorities are very focused. My priority was drugs first. I would love to do this show that I promised, but I have to get drugs. And if someone got in the way, I'm going to call, or maybe just not call, and I'm just not going to show up and do the gig. So recovery is always first in my life. Recovery is always, because there's nothing. I mean, you see my little cat. I wouldn't have my cat. I wouldn't. How could I have this? I wouldn't have anything. So recovery comes first, and drug addiction came first and took everything away from me. I tried to do different things other than stop. I tried to not use my drug of choice, switch, do less at a time, do it not every day, just anything to be able to still do it until I realized that the only way I was not much of a drinker, and I stopped doing drugs, and I was a classic case of the thinking process that, why do I have to give this up when it's not something I even do that much, meaning the drinking. And there wasn't anyone to tell me because I wasn't involved in the program yet. And I had to actually put two and two and two and two together numerous times and say, I don't drink much, but I notice that every time I drink, I forget the withdrawal that I just went through. I forget the money that my parents spent on rehabs, and I talk myself into it, saying, I will never get as bad as I used to be. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to do it as much. And I believe that your old friends, I know it's very common to say those people, those weren't your friends. Well, I don't believe that. My friends were my friends. And when I was a hardcore drug addict, I made them sad. To hang around with me meant I was going to try to borrow money. So when I finally got clean, they were happy. They were so happy, but they don't know what addiction is. They don't know that a joint equals a needle equals a crack pipe. It's up to us to tell them. And I relapsed once in the middle of 86. And it was because of that. I was out with a friend who was glad I was clean. And I knew that he had weed on him. And I asked him, we were out at a dance club. I was like, do you have pot on you? The blood drained from his face. He was so scared when I said it because all I was saying was, I could never do that again. I will never do that again. And when I said that, he sat up and he goes, what do you mean? I said, come on. He goes, I thought you can't do anything anymore. And I said, weed was never my problem. And my old friends, they wanted the old me back.
Of
That
course, yeah,
guy
you were
was
their running
fun.
buddy.
That guy
Yeah,
was
you were
fun.
the running
They
buddy.
weren't addicts. They wanted me back. And I convinced them. And it didn't take long. Scary how short it took.
To get back to a bottom.
It's scary to think how easily I made him say, yeah, I guess you're right. It makes me wonder, could I do that to my family? Could I convince them? Because I used to say to people, you ever see me doing that, knock me unconscious because I don't want to be doing it. But I convinced him to smoke weed and no disaster happened that night. And I started doing that again. And then it was a short time till I was back to hardcore drugs. But I had some recovery now. And I now knew that this was a choice. I knew I didn't have to live this way. I could be clean because I had been clean. That's a sad existence when you know you don't have to do it and you're still doing it. The end of 86 into the winter of 87 was a nightmare for me, from anyone close to me. My girlfriend, she bridged a gap between using and recovery. We went out for years when I was using and then years clean. That was an impossibility. What I did to my family when I relapsed and then thinking I was clean. When I finally got caught, I was so relieved. When my whole family found out, because I couldn't say the simple words that almost cost me my life, and I'm sure has cost many addicts their life, I could not admit it. I couldn't admit it, and I almost died because of that. But I didn't have to, because they all found out, and I was completely relieved. My first thought when my brother was the one who let me know, we know what you're doing. Less than an hour later, I was on the phone making plans, and the next day I went away. I couldn't live that way. Right from our readings, I could not live with or without it. I couldn't live with or without it. And I got clean the next day. I went into treatment the next day. I consider my last day in detox using because they gave me a bunch of stuff and I took it all at once and drank hot water. I mean, drug addict. So, and someone had told me that like would help you get high. And I knew I was going into a rehab. And I told them, I was like, please, I haven't slept. Can you just, and they gave me something to help me sleep. So I consider that my last day using, even though like a week earlier, it doesn't really matter, a week or here and there. So when they picked me up the next day and take me to rehab, that's my clean date, February 18th.
So, what brought you to recovery? When you were in your rehab, were you exposed to any 12-step programs? What brought you into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous?
Well, the first detox and rehab I was in had meetings and I enjoyed it. Even though I relapsed afterwards, I relapsed because I didn't understand the hard work that it takes, particularly right in the beginning. And I was actually surprised. I felt like I was on the Titanic and at the last minute, someone gave me a life raft. I felt like I escaped. I can't believe I actually quit using drugs. I'm not dope sick anymore. This is amazing. And I didn't put in the hard work. And that's when I relapsed. And when I was in that first rehab and they had meetings, we loved it. I would try to share at every meeting. We didn't really know what we were doing. And I didn't know relapse was down the road for me. I thought this was it. When I relapsed, I pretty much immediately stopped going to meetings, but I continued to tell my family I was going. It was so confusing for them. When they found out I was using, I'm pretty sure they were relieved because I believe they thought the program was very flawed if this is recovery.
What you were showing them while you were
Yes.
using
So
and
then
claiming to be in
so
recovery.
then when they found out, I think said, okay, good. Now we know it's him. It wasn't this. I knew that recovery worked and I knew that it could work for me, and everything fell into place for me so easily. I was in a rehab upstate, all guys, which helped me because if it wasn't, I would have been in love with 5 different women
Of course.
within a week. So it was really good, and it was veterans like I mean like people who had been around the block. We were calling this like the last. This is the last house on the street, and it really helped. And the thing that helped me the most, and every anniversary I call the owner. He's still alive, an old timer. I had some stuff down here I had to take care of, tickets and stuff, and he allowed me, trusted me to come down here, and he would give me how much you need, and I would plan it out to the penny. I had to take a bus and a train to a certain place upstate, and then I took a bus into Port Authority, walked down to Penn Station, and then took a train here. So I would plan it all out, and I would say it's going to cost me $83, and he would say here's 150. Doesn't sound like much. I could cry thinking about it right now. That was probably like the first person in recovery that really trusted me. It meant the world to me, that he did that. And what it did for me coming down here was it allowed me to get a foundation. I would go to meetings. I didn't know there was much of a big difference between fellowships. So I was just going to meetings. They said go to meetings. And then my counselor, who actually spoke at my first anniversary down here, he didn't make it over the years. He relapsed and died. He said to me, awesome that you're going to meetings. Are you going to any NA? And I said, no, should I? I didn't know. And he said, give it a shot. And I walked into a meeting. It's not around anymore. LOA. It either stood for Lost on Arrival or Love One Another. We don't really know. Down in Huntington Village. And I was 26. There were girls there. People were my age. People in recovery that were cool people that were having fun. And I felt so at home immediately. Plus, keep in mind what I said. I was done. My last couple of years of using, I couldn't live with or without it. So now that I finally stopped, I was ready. I was so ready for recovery. I got a great sponsor. It was common in those days to have a step sponsor and a regular sponsor. I asked my sponsor to work me through the steps, and he was a beautiful enough person to say, I can't, I haven't worked the steps. So I got another sponsor. If you would have told me you have to give up playing live gigs, I wouldn't have blinked an eye. I don't care. I'm alive. I shouldn't even be alive, and I'm alive. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to play. I'll be up in my room playing. And then people from NA said, we can't come to every gig, but we'll come to some gigs local in Huntington. First ones I did, there they were right in front of me. What a feeling. Then I joined the band as a guitar player, and we were doing a gig in St. James. And I'm standing there with a coffee. And he goes, hey, I notice you're always drinking a coffee. Do you not drink? And I go, no. I think I had a little over a year. And as soon as I said, he's an AA guy. So as soon as I said, he goes, you drink? I go, no. And he goes, friend of Bill's. That's like a common AA thing. Bill Wilson, the founder of AA. You say you're friend of Bill's. And I go, yeah. And he puts out his hand. I'm in his band. And he puts out his hand like we're meeting each other for the first time. Well, can you believe that feeling of now, one of the things I'm most worried about playing music in bars, the person next to me is in recovery and involved in recovery. He's still involved. I knew that I was safe, and then he gave me he denies it, but he gave me my start by firing me. Always says I didn't fire you, but he said you should really have your own band. I was like, I'm very happy just playing guitar, singing a song here and there. He goes, no, I'm telling you, I can see the reaction. People like when you do songs. You should do it. I go, no. He goes, well, you're gonna have to.
See you later.
I got a sax player instead.
Hit the road.
He hired a saxophone player.
And what a journey it's been. You have several albums.
Hmm.
You have had several bands, but right now you are the lead singer and guitarist of a rockabilly band, the Buzzards.
Yeah, I put my name on it because it was more of a democratic band in the beginning, and first CDs, we were all there for the recording and the mixing of it. And the engineer said to me at one point, this would be done if it was just me and you. And I was like, no, we're all chipped in for this. I like to play a lot of gigs, and that particular lineup didn't like to travel that much. So I would end up with different players. So when it's time to record the next CDs, which I wrote, I'm always the writer. I had different players. I'm doing gigs with a bunch of different musicians. I wanted to honor them by putting them on the CD. So at that point, the Buzzards weren't the three guys anymore. So that's why now it's Roy Wilson and the Buzzards.
The music that you play brings so much joy to people. I mean, it's nostalgic music, right? It brings a swing dance crowd. There's a lot of old time classics that people, you make people time travel with your music. You bring those sounds and those times back into present day in 2025.
I'm not Happy Days or Sha Na Na. You probably don't even remember what those.
Of course I do. Are you
Okay,
kidding me? Come on now. I have white hair.
you're a whippersnapper. That's the name of my friend's band, Deke Dickerson and the Whippersnappers.
And I'm a musician, don't forget that.
So I'm not an oldies review. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock, and nothing against that. One of the classic rockabilly guitar solos in the middle of that song. It's not 50s dress up day at school. Some people come along on the scene and try to do that. I've been doing this a long time. I can see when someone does that. I know they're not going to be around forever. I don't have anything against them, but sometimes I say to them, you latched on to this. This is what we do. Whether there's no one here or I'm playing Madison Square Garden, this is what we do. This is not an act. This is our lives. This is how we live our lives. The songs I write are this kind of stuff. And I have varied influences. I mean, I have a rockabilly band, but old country, honky tonk, hillbilly, western swing, that's my true love. I mean, old country music from mid 40s to mid 50s. There's so much of that kind of music. And then the newer ones too. Not newer, but still old. Like Johnny Cash and George Jones, Merle Haggard, those guys. There's a sincerity to it.
Yep.
You were there. If someone is standing 2 feet in front of me and I don't mean it, they know. They're right there.
Yep.
So I love that connection. And I love people. I love people. I love the human experience. I love observing. I love watching people riding the subway and watching people in meetings. I love sitting in meetings and I create false narratives. This guy's probably this and that. None of them are true. And hopefully there's someone doing that about me right now too, because, it's a short ride that we have here and I want to enjoy it. I mean, I love people. I love animals, maybe more than people. This is what I am about. I'm about literature, music, and animals. And it's all because of recovery, Sophie.
And service. I mean, you do a lot of service. You're your local area, but also the regional H&I chair.
I was
And
taught that by my sponsor, my step sponsor, who became my sponsor. He was the chair of H&I in Nassau. And I got a commitment and I learned how to run a meeting from him. A business meeting we're conducting business here. He had another sponsee. I just assumed I was going to be next in line for H&I chair. And when it was the other guy, oh, my feelings were hurt until I had a little bit more recovery and I realized it was the right move. But he's the one who got me involved in H&I. And keep in mind, in 1987, Long Island was all one area, first of all.
mm-hmm.
SNAS, and you could trace the roots of it through H&I because there was an H&I subcommittee before there was an area. And as unusual as that sounds, it's not when you break it down. If we have an NA meeting, you and me form an NA meeting, and then a facility knows they have a meeting. Hey, can you guys bring in a meeting? Well, we don't even have an area. We only have one meeting. But you have to then have to form that subcommittee. So it's common to have the H&I subcommittee before the area. And I was able to directly trace those roots. From my sponsor was Dave C. And before him was Rusty R., who's still around. And before him was really the founder of NA in this area, George, we called him Butch. He started hundreds of meetings and went to Florida and died clean, but many years clean. And he started over 200 meetings in Florida.
Wow.
His sister still comes around, and his wife, Robin, and his wife is Kim. She's in Florida. He spoke at a convention once, main speaker, and he stepped up to that microphone. He was big. You know that New York NA book?
Hmm.
He's in there. He stepped up to that microphone and goes, "Hey, I'm George. But I'm Butch Manatee. My brother has 10 years clean today." The place goes nuts. He also has 10 years dead. Holy cow.
Oh shit.
That's the kind of speaker he was, too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was intense. I got handed a lot of archives. I have held on to them. Many archivists through Nassau and Suffolk, and now I'm part of Heart of Long Island. Would they still have this stuff? Probably not. So I'm glad I have it. I have the letters from the. There's this. It was a legendary piece of literature on Long Island. It was called "Don't Be Afraid of the Dark." It was from the London area. Wrote to Butch to don't be afraid to form NA. I have that letter, and then we used to send out letters of recommendation to facilities. They're historic because they're most of the places are not around anymore. Some of them still are though. That's pretty cool too.
Well, that's a big reason why I started this podcast because the meeting that helped me get clean, the 24/7 NA 24/7 meeting, was started in by people in the Nassau area.
Is that a Zoom?
Yeah, the Nassau area started Never Alone, Never Again. It was Nassau Area Narcotics Anonymous 24/7. So there, this is a Nassau area is a historic area in general, but also has influenced a lot of even modern day recovery and making it accessible to people online. There are hundreds of people. If we log on right now to NNA 24/7, there's at least 100 people online at any given point. That's how I got clean. The goal of this is to really get a feel for who are these people that are doing our local service on the ground, in the hospitals, in the institutions, really getting acquainted with those voices and hearing who they are and having them be the voices that we hear reading our literature every day.
Whatever convention you go to the history. If there's a history meeting,
Mm.
and if you hear people, and we hear it, badmouth AA, you hear that. It's just a fact. We hear people say that in meetings. Go to a history meeting and realize that AA is our history.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, look at the struggles that NA had before they adopted the traditions, and it's always fascinating. And then old timers meeting, it's another good place to go
Oh, yeah.
at a convention. Go to the old timers.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your experience and telling us all about what it's like to be a professional musician in this space. And
Like I said, I'm honored to do it. There's none of it. There's none of it without recovery, and for me, service part of it has been linked to it, and I don't forget that wherever I may be in a different state, I'm either have my commitments covered or I'm doing the meetings on Zoom. There's no other way. There's no other way. I feel like the fellowship could exist without me, but could I exist without it? No. I try to practice in all my affairs. I refuse to be a crotchety old timer who wants to talk about. uh, Not only is it different than we used to do it, but it was better back then. I'll never. I think it's harder now. There were no cell phones. There was no internet. There was no distractions. It's hard now. It's hard, and you can keep saying that's not how we used to do it, or you can say I have to change with the times and still bring my respectful experience along with it. That's the way.
well, thank you for giving us your perspective and for telling your story and for your music.
This is something special that you're doing here.
Thanks.
This is an important option for people to have, a tool.
This is my form of service. It's my form of giving back. And I love this community. And I wanted to give people in recovery an option for being able to listen to recovery in their free time, or start their day with a passage, and to hear a passage or to share a passage and say, hey, give this a listen. And bringing that to people on their phones, on their computers, on their, whatever device they so choose to listen, for me is an important form of service, because we are in the digital age. And so having that be an option from people who are in recovery, right? It's not just Siri or Alexa or whoever reading this passage. It's not a robot voice. It's a person who lives and breathes recovery and is staying clean one day at a time.
What gave you the idea to do it?
My higher power, I guess.
Just
Yeah,
came out of nowhere.
Just one day, I just said, I'm starting a podcast. I'm doing this. Bought the equipment. Do
you think is a lot of your recovery on Zoom meetings? No. Most of them are in person?
I do in person a lot. Yep.
That's higher power at work right there.
Higher power at work. Yeah, I know nothing about audio engineering.
It's the exact same thing as music.
Yeah, I know.
It's what you chose.
Yep.
Really something
the
more.
Auditory media, yep. So thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for sharing your recovery with us and your story. And I am such a fan, and I'm so glad that you're my friend.
Ditto. I agree. Thank you so much, Sophie. Proud to know you. I'm glad we met.
Me too, Roy. Thank you. The Voices of Recovery podcast is an independent production of the Works of Wisdom. We welcome your questions and donations via PayPal at voicesofrecoverypod@gmail.com. This podcast is an independent production and is not affiliated with, associated with, authorized by, endorsed by, or in any way officially connected with Narcotics Anonymous or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates. While any literature may be read during episodes for the purpose of supporting recovery, such use does not constitute an official endorsement or representation by Narcotics Anonymous. In accordance with NA tradition, the NA name is not to be used to endorse or be affiliated with any outside enterprise, and no such endorsement or affiliation is implied. Music by Roy Wilson and the Buzzards. Thanks for listening to the Voices of Recovery podcast.